My question is regarding the appointments of the top hierarchy in a election commission or information commission. The executive has more discretion towards these things, and we also talked about the uh, politicization of bureaucracy, as well as you told us that police should be an independent authority. How do we ensure these things?
We are confusing between different concepts. Our notion that government should not be trusted is a dangerous notion. Remember one thing, good or bad, we are some form of democracy. How is democracy different from any other form of government? What is the central feature of a democracy?
The ultimate power is to the public.
That means every agency, every functionary, every authority traces its legitimacy to how? Through the vote. And how is that translated? Through vote, who is elected in India? Your representative. What do? They form the government. Because ours is a unified system where executive and legislature are not separate. It's called, what we call, technically speaking, it's called parliamentary executive system. People loosely say parliamentary democracy. Every democracy is a parliamentary democracy. Ours is a parliamentary executive system. America is a separate executive legislature, separation of power system. So every agency in the country, from Supreme Court to Election Commission to CAG to Public Service Commission to anything, unless it is traced to the people's vote and the elected representatives, either parliament or the creature of parliament, namely the government, that institution is illegitimate. First you must understand. This notion that because I don't trust politicians, Supreme Court will appoint itself, it's Swayambhu, like God creates itself, is a nonsensical and dangerous notion, undemocratic notion. If democracy is failing, make democracy work better, damn it. Don't destroy democracy. Let's come then to the functional aspect. Do we think Supreme Court is now functioning well? Do we think the court has minimum degree of competence and integrity? Do you think by appointing themselves they are doing a better job? They are doing a disgraceful job. So even from a functional point of view, they are not right. It is a self-serving, third-rate argument. I was the architect of the 99th Amendment of the Constitution. The National Judicial Appointments Commission was my creation. I appointed a committee headed by Justice Venkatachalaya, then late Justice J.S. Verma, and late Justice Krishna Iyer, the three greatest jurists of India, of unimpeachable integrity. I put them together, asked them to come up with the formula, and that's the basis on which the 19th Amendment is enacted. The Supreme Court, in a self-serving judgment, said it's unconstitutional. Because we don't want to create a war between Parliament and Supreme Court, we had to keep quiet until people become wiser. But in no other democracy can an unelected institution say, I'll appoint myself and you have no legitimacy. It's rubbish. I'm not saying there must not be better procedures for appointment. Certainly, let's argue, but this is not the substitute. This is absurd. Because Supreme Court is far more illegitimate than the government elected by you and me any day. Because you and I voted for them, like it or not. Who the hell voted Supreme Court? Or High Court? Or any other idiot? Because we are fundamentally, the middle classes of India are undemocratic. We don't want democracy. We think democracy means all the poor fellows with dirty clothes, sweaty body, they come and vote like me and them. What is this nonsense? We don't like it. We don't want to say it. But basically, we were very happy with centralization of power. We were very happy with the legislatures being emasculated. We were very happy with abusing politicians and political process. And we think we are great patriots. Rubbish. You destroy the country by that means. I have been the strongest fighter against what is wrong in politics of India in the last 26, 77 years. But that is by making democracy better, not by destroying democracy and delegitimizing politics. And in our country, in the name of the middle classes, bureaucracy, judiciary, we made it a pastime to delegitimize democracy, enrich their powers and mess up the country. Even if theoretically it is wrong, if these people are serving the country well, supposing they are delivering justice, there is integrity, there is competence, there is speed. Supposing bureaucracy is actually delivering when the resources are available, I would be delighted. What prevented bureaucracy from educating our children? Did politicians stop them from educating the children? What prevented a special officer of a municipal corporation when there is no elected body to function much better? Is there evidence that they did much better? It's all rubbish. Individuals apart, there are always great individuals in any system. In politics, in bureaucracy, in judiciary, some great people who did outstanding things way above and beyond the call. But these are exceptions. This is not the norm. So all these typical middle class anti-political notions are basically undemocratic, stupid, ill thought out, dangerous, counterproductive notions. Got it?
About the independence of police.
Independence, no. Autonomy with accountability. An unaccountable independent police is far more dangerous than the current system. I have monitored elections in countries where the police chief was more feared than the president of the country. That's a disaster. If you believe that adjudication of a dispute or a criminal trial must be independent of any influences, we all believe that, right? Then what is the police job in criminal cases? To gather evidence in order to facilitate justice. How can that be any less independent than judiciary? Nobody must be able to say, you take this evidence but don't take this evidence. That is the meaning of autonomy, of crime investigation, but with accountability. Any power can be abused, and police power can be most abused, because there is no power greater than the power of danda, greater than the power of altering the evidence, doctoring the evidence. That is the greatest power. Therefore, institutional checks and balances. I have written a whole report in the Administrative Reforms Commission on this. That report was entirely pending, maybe the structure was good. So there's a greater structure how to do it. It's a very complex thing. If you're interested, go into that report. On public order, that's the title. So a complicated, a very intricate mechanism has to be evolved. Police must be impervious to political and other influences, but they must be also made effectively accountable. Don't trust anybody, not with that kind of power. So what is our notion of police reform? Appoint the police chief with opposition leader and somebody else. After that, let him do whatever he likes. It's a disaster. It's an absolute disaster. And do you want to separate the functions from traffic police to crime investigation to VIP security, everything? You want one single unified police, and you want that fellow to be completely away from the politicians? If they're doing such a great job, why are our streets such a mess? So, we have not thought through issues carefully. As a principle, crime investigation must be impervious to political vagaries and partisan influences. But there must be very effective systems of accountability on the one hand and coordination on the other hand. Because whatever you do, the law and order police cannot be taken away from the government, because the government has a stake and a right to determine how to maintain order in society. No country, no self-respecting government will give up control over law and order. Then there is no government at all. So how do you separate them? And how do you minimize the politicians' mischief there? And the power is inevitable. So it has to be very carefully thought out. In our country, it's all black and white, very crude, sloganeering, without depth. As Justice Venkatacharya told me once, it's a beautiful expression he used. He said, ours is a system of compensatory errors. The distortions and errors in one branch of government are set right, but distortions and errors of another branch of government. Both are wrong. But if you want to end one wrong, make sure the other wrong is not there. A politician interfering in police functioning must end. But police functioning must be accountable and effective. If that is not there, at least the politician is going and shouting, "Sir, akkada anyayam chestunadu. That fellow is beating up that fellow unfairly. Why are you doing that?" And there is some countervailing force. If that voice is removed without checking abuse of police power, it will be disaster. It will be a disaster. That's what happens in dictatorships. The policeman comes and takes away. What happened in emergency? No politician interfered. If you know some of the terrible things that happened during emergency, I can't even mention to you in mixed company. Then you'll understand. So never trust any agency with absolute power. No, least of all police. So it must be very carefully thought out system of checks and balances.
Like and subscribe Eagle Media Works.